So today I want to talk about these NWS cable shears. But before I do that though, I want to explain why you'd want to actually use cable shears as an electrician. So first of all, this is going to be your main tool. This is the one you have pretty much on you all the time. This does about 90% of the work that these guys can do. But sometimes you'd need the extra leverage that these guys have here. When you're doing larger telephone cables, let's say, it can get very strenuous on your hand, constantly cutting all day long when you're working at a board or something like that. You have big 4 square cables and stuff like that. You're constantly cutting with these smaller, your snips and stuff like that. These larger cable shears, they do the job much better than these. They cut your cable much faster. Now, even though these are 2 years old, and as you can see, they have an absolute mountain of use on them. If you can hold it up to the light, even when I try to squeeze, there's still a bit of light left there. I can't really see it on camera, but there's still a little bit of light left there on the between the blades. But these still cut perfectly fine. You can use these. I can use these no problem. I still use these every single day. But basically, when you're doing a strip out of a building or something like that, and like I said, when you're working on the board, big 4 square cables, you'd want these cable shears because they just cut through cable much easier, and they save a lot of strain on your wrist. Just save you from getting a trigger finger. I don't know what the medical term is, but when you wake up and your fingers are just fused and you kind of have to pry your finger open, these guys here will actually save your tendons. So basically, the first one I got was these Nipex, and these to me are pretty useless. They cut through absolutely anything completely fine, no issues whatsoever. They're just far too big, and as you can see, even though these are probably about 5 years old, the handles still look pretty much brand new. I think there's even still the original oil left on the tool itself. There's pretty much no use on the actual blades. I think I only used this maybe a handful of times. Now, sometimes you'd want the larger cable shears over these smaller cable shears, the likes of telephone cables, larger telephone cables and stuff like that. You'd want the bigger, the more leverage and the bigger cutting zone. But most of the time, like I said, these guys here do about 90% of the work that this guy here can do. But sometimes you just want the extra 10% when you're constantly cutting a lot of 4 square or something like that. Maybe you'd want the larger leverage. But for me, these small 160 sizes are my favourite. Now, the first one I did buy was this Weha here. It's perfectly fine. I've had it for about a year and it was lovely. No issues with it whatsoever. Still cuts everything perfect. As you can see, there's 2 cutting zones here. If I just hold it out for you. Now, the reason why I did replace this with the NWS is because I was a bit of an idiot and I cut, as you can see there, I cut a live cable, so it did blow up. But as you can see, like I said, it's cut into two zones, top and bottom. Now, obviously, the bottom zone still cuts perfectly fine, but sometimes, like I said, when you're working with a larger 4-square cable, some of this larger, this is only 1.5 flex and stuff like that. But even then, you still find yourself with the larger cables, you cut them, and then you want to, it still have a bit of copper left in it. So that's why I ended up getting the NWS, just so, one and done. I won't have to mess around, constantly having to cut 2 or 3 times to clear the cable. Now, these NWSs here, probably, I think they were about, how much were they? Probably about €25 or something like that in the wholesalers. Everybody said online, everybody says on site that the NWSs are a very good brand. This is my first NWS tool, and as I'll say in this video, it's not the best. I much prefer the Weha, even though it's blown. Now, I've only had this for about a month, so it only has about a month of use, as you can see by the handles. You can see, yeah, my name has rubbed off fairly quickly on it, but I haven't put a lot of hours on this tool. Working at boards and stuff like that is probably where I've only really had to use it. This one has about a year on it. As you can see, pretty much all the writing has gone off the tool itself, which pretty much happens with every single tool. You can see with the old Nipex there. Eventually all just gets rubbed off. But this has about a year of use on it. the same use as I put this one here through. I don't cut any aluminium or anything like that. I just purely cut copper, and already this blade has gone very, very dull, as I'll show you now. So if I just get some little 0.75 flex, you can see with the WeHa one, show you there in the good part. After a year of use, still cuts through cables, no issues whatsoever. I'll show you with the snips, cuts through it, no problems. But the NWS, even though it's only a month old, can't clear the cable at all. And if I move up, it's awkward to do with a camera. Hang on. Even if I move up another part of the blade and cut again, still can't clear any of the cable. So no matter where I go on the blade, it's dull. You can see there's plenty of copper left there. So basically, these are pretty much unusable at this stage. They're pretty much gone. Now, like I said, well, I didn't say, but snips, cable shears, you know, these things have a lifespan. They're not going to last forever. But I've only gotten a month out of these, which is, to me, that, you know, maybe it's a bad tool. I'm not sure. Maybe I got a bad tool. I'm no metal expert. Maybe the metal was too hard, so every time it cuts through cable, it breaks some of the metal off, or maybe the metal's too soft, so every time it cuts through the copper, it microscopically mushrooms over or something like that. Maybe that's why it got dull so fast. But while these were functional, these were brilliant. Cut through absolutely anything I wanted. I actually preferred them over these because at the time, because you know, they'd cut through anything, and I do much prefer the handles as opposed to the WeHa handles, and even opposed to the Nipex handles. Still prefer the plastic dipped handles. They're still the best out of the whole lot. But these ones are like the perfect in between your multi grip and your full plastic. You know, because it's kind of like hard plastic, then it's like grippy on the sides. I do quite like it. It's much better than the WeHa, much better than Nipex. It's very comfortable to use, but I still prefer the plastic dipped. What else did I just say about it? Yeah, so basically you'd strip cable, you strip flex, no problem with it. You'd strip the larger 1.5 flex, 4 tuft. You know, this stuff is very hard to cut. If I can get the WeHa ones, hang on, let's put in the good part of the cut. You know, these still cut absolutely no problem. Get the Nipex. You know, they shut off pretty fair. But with these more single core cables, focus, more single core cables, these are actually, believe it or not, easier on the tool to cut. If I show you now, even though it can't cut smaller little flexes like these, it'll actually cut through 4-alarm cable, no problem. So it does, obviously the difference between something like your snips and your shears is night and day difference. Just way more less strain on your wrists, you know, when you're constantly cutting all day long. So these were great when they were working, strip cable, perfect, fine, but they only lasted a month. So to me, that's no good. This one here lasted a full year before I blew it. And I think I bought this in the wholesalers for about, I think it was probably €25 as well. So if I was to recommend one, I'd recommend the WeHa. If you want to spend all your money, go for the Nipex, but you know, they're a bit big. I think they make a smaller size, I think they do. But these guys just cut through absolutely anything you want. Much easier than the other cable shears. But they are much larger. They cost pretty much twice as much, probably, if not 3 times as more. I think I've seen these in the wholesalers for about €80. Now I bought that for about €40. But it depends where you go, obviously. And obviously if you want the plastic dipped handles, they're going to be way more expensive. They're about €15 the difference than just your your multi grip cables. I think that's what they call them, multi-component cables or something like that, isn't it? But I don't like this at all. The grips on these at all. It's too soft or something like that. I just much prefer the plastic. What I was gonna say, I suppose I can just show you again. I won't cut the larger cables. I'll use a different portion of the blade. Still won't cut at all. And we got something much smaller, like the snips. 2 years of use. Cuts through all day long. The old wheel ones, I'll show you why. Cuts through absolutely like butter. So you can see why you'd want to use these, just way faster at cutting cable. You know, something like Nipex, something like we had, much prefer over the the NWS. I don't think I'll be looking for another NWS tool after this. Just the degradation was just way too quick on these. And what else can I say about it? It's nice that you have the little hooks for your lanyards built into it, and that you have an adjuster screw here. You have one on the Nipex as well, but I just prefer the nut, just because, you know, if you have a spanner on you, it's grand. Whereas this is a flathead, and if this gets, you know, mushed up with all you know, copper dust, bits of dust off where you're working, probably get jammed up. Whereas this is kind of free all the time. What I was gonna say, not much, I suppose. Yeah, for me, your Weha or your Nipex. That's all I can say. Thanks for watching. Any comments, give us a shout, and I'll try to answer them best I can. Thanks, bye.